Hello everybody and welcome! If you're a fan of the space simulation game genre, which was basically founded by Kerbal space program and of course all the other games that spawned from it, you like to build spaceships. And while there was the option to buy some model recreations of ships from Kerbal space program, the real appeal is to have your own spaceship that you created in your hands, and that's where a new mod comes in. Created by none other than modding legend Linux Guru Gamer. It's called Kerbal 3D Exporter, and you can get it via the usual means. Mine, of course, is CCAN. If you want to know how that works, I did an entire best mods for 2026 or something for KSP video, so I'll link that up top and in the description. The mod is still very much in development. I think it's in version 0.0.4 or something when I tried it. And Linux Guru Gamer is very open to feedback and suggestions. I mean, the guy is a legend. LGG has basically maintained more than half of all Kerbal mods nowadays, I think. Since I do enjoy 3D printing, and I have a Prusa Core 1 here at home, and I do like the thought of having like maybe one of my more iconic spaceships from KSP as a backdrop for my videos, I decided to give this a try. At first I ran into a bit of issues, and I talked to LGG about that, and he basically almost immediately fixed most of them. Told you, the guy is very open to feedback. But before I started with like the real big ships and the real complicated designs, I decided to go for something very simple. Just a capsule, a heat shield, parachute, fuel tank, and an engine. Some RCS modules for good measure, and to test how this goes wrong, or maybe right, who knows, with very fine materials or very fine structures. You can load up the mod directly from the VAB editor, and there are some parameters in there. You can define the target size of it, which is very helpful because my maximum height of my 3D printer volume is 27 centimeters. So that's the hard limit of how high something can be built. And you can also define, if you have a slicer installed, in which slicer the model should be opened after it's created. There are also some other information and stuff in there that I'm not going to go into any detail, because most of the time if you're using this you will only need set up what you want to print, then click a few buttons whether or not you want the fairings or shrouds active, and then it's off to the races. The created file will be put in a subfolder within the mods folder on your KSP installation. But be aware, if you do another export, so maybe if you change something on the vehicle and then save it and then you do another export for your 3D printer, it will overwrite the previous model. One thing that I wanted to be included in that mod was to make spherical models more refined, so that a cylinder has more vertices, so it gets a smoother curve once you print it. And the mod offers you 3 options to do that. Alright, once the slicer opens up, the model is loaded in, and there are a lot of errors. Well, I decided to try printing it anyway, and I was in for a surprise. Because first off, the printer told me it was finished, 100% printed, but yeah, it was far from it. There was basically the entire upper half missing, or not upper half, the entire capsule segment was missing. And I first blamed the mod, but of course it was not the mod's fault, it was the filament that broke inside the nozzle. So that was another whole ordeal. Like, I had to disassemble the nozzle and I wasn't able to push out the filament, so I had to heat it up until it was a little bit softer, and then it kind of ran out, and then I pulled it out, and anyway, another hour of work until I got my printer back working. And then I also realized I need to fix that model because, unfortunately, as you can see here, there was an entire section missing. you can see that the nozzle, the engine bell was printed, and then the plate for the engine bell was printed, and then there's sort of a small rectangular almost shroud around it, and that was entirely missing. So that was probably one of those thousands of errors that Prusa Slicer showed me when I loaded up the STL. Now, if you right-click on that warning sign in the slicer, it will attempt to repair everything. That takes a little bit of a while, but it does so. Unfortunately, when it does so, it also fills up the engine bell, and that's not good. So I kind of used Blender to blend the old error-prone and fixed STL together. So only the engine bell of the old STL file was still present, and then I mashed that together and created a third STL and then printed that, which worked basically fine until I tried to rip apart the supports, and it seems that the supports were kind of glued too much towards the throat of the engine, and it kind of ripped the bell apart. Oh yeah, and that's foreshadowing for my more complex build. But yeah, nothing that a little bit of super glue couldn't fix. Well, it's kind of crooked now. So basically it's always gimbaling. But yeah, if you look at those details and how everything came out, if you paint that, or if you have a printer with multicolor filament, that's gonna look amazing. So, of course, I did what I always do. I went overboard with it. Back when we were still hyped for Kerbal Space Program 2, yes, I know, it turned out bad, and we're all sad for it. I did a mission called Invictus with a spaceship of the same name. Basically, the idea was to visit all planets and moons, not only in the stock Kerbal system, but also in the Outer Planets mod. This turned into 2 one-hour-long videos, and I'm going to link to those as well. If you have the time, just kick back and relax and watch the madness unfold for 2 hours and some really beautiful shots, because I used all the visual mods that were available at the time. And of course, the Outer Planets mod is amazing. What's also amazing is the level of detail on Invictus. The spaceship is huge, and of course it has to be if it wants to travel all the time between all of these planets and moons and refill. So it's really complicated, really complex, and I had to reduce the complexity to make it work. So what I did, I ripped out all the parts within the cargo bays. So all the solar panels, all the radiators, all the parts for the rover and the lander stuff, and also parts for the drill, because those would have just hung there, and I was already thinking about how that would work with 3D printing, and I decided it wouldn't. And I also removed all the vernier thrusters, which I used instead of RCS, because the ship is so huge that it needed really powerful reaction control system, and all the lights that I hid here and there to make it look good in the dark. So yeah, this was already a stripped down version of Invictus, but still a lot of complication in it. Did I mention foreshadowing earlier? Yeah, here we ran into the same problem. When I loaded up into the slicer, it told me it had thousands of errors. So of course I attempted to fix them, and then that filled up the engine nozzles, which I did not like, but in this case I should have swallowed my pride and let them be filled. I did the usual stuff in Blender, where I just cut away the part of the engine bells in the original STL and stitched it together, then loaded it up back into Prusa Slicer, and due to the complexity of the build and how it stands on just 3 thingies, 3 kind of pistons on the bottom, there were a lot of supports. But hey, the print worked fine at the first attempt, and 17 hours later I had this beauty waiting for me in the morning. Now, what wasn't so beautiful was having to cut all of those supports off without ripping apart the nuclear engines. because as you can see, those are just hung together on tiny threads of filament. Also, the control surfaces for the lander are so thin that you can literally see through them. Yeah, maybe I should have done a multi-part print. I should have expanded that in Blender and then cut it up maybe in 3 parts. Maybe if I had used the lander as a separate vehicle and did some sort of connection mechanism on top, that might have been also very cool. But that's something for later, and I also don't think that I want to spend that much of space here in my room for this. What I did do was super glue those nuclear engines back to the main ship. But hey, it looks great standing there next to my desk, and even though there are some mistakes at the engine bells due to how fine-grained, how filigrane everything is down there, there's still a lot of level of detail. I mean, yeah, the landing gear almost fell off or even fell off. So yeah, actually, I mean, those things in KSP, they are just attached at one single point. If you get an STL with these large landing legs, for instance, I recommend that you do some type of connecting element in Blender or whatever other CAD program you use to make those things more stable. Or put some type of cylinder mesh through the nuclear engines so that they have a part running through them that is going to be stable, so not all of your nozzles will fall off. Lesson learned for the next time, I guess. Anyway, this was just a quick video to demonstrate how 3D printing Kerbal spaceships that you built on your own can work. So, not only can you build your own spaceship in KSP, you can now use the Kerbal 3D exporter mod to get those into your 3D printer or the 3D printer of your friend or whoever owns a 3D printer, or use a 3D printing service to have your own special personal spaceship. Huge shout out to Linux Guru Gamer for making this possible. I really enjoyed working with this mod, even though there are still some kinks. For instance, I don't think that the STL mesh needs all the interior if there is something within a fairing, so that could save on file size and complexity. But hey, with a little bit of tinkering you can already get good results right now. And maybe once the file structures for Kitten Space Agency are finalized and the modding pipeline is in place, this mod or something like this mod can also be used for vehicles built in KSA. So while KSP is no longer in active development, the modding community is very much still alive. And I hope it's going to be likewise alive for KSA once the game is a bit more matured, because right now a lot of things are changing very rapidly, so I don't think that modders will have a fun time if they have to redo their mods because there are some game-breaking changes. For instance, a few weeks ago, all the save games and previously created vehicles would fail because the developers changed something significantly. And since KSA is still very much in a pre-alpha phase, these things will continue to happen for a while. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this a little bit different video from my usual stuff that I did in the past few months. And if you did, consider subscribing to this channel, because we will continue looking at Kitten Space Agency updates, and also, of course, if interesting stuff is happening with other space games. And yes, I have an entire backlog of other things I want to look at. Do you own a 3D printer? Do you want to try out this mod? What would you want to print with it? Let me know in the comments down below. I might be slow to respond because I am on vacation at the moment, but I will have internet and I will look into the comment section. And maybe when I come back I have an entirely new idea how to make that Invictus 3D print work better. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.